The baby cried in the silence of the plains, his wails carrying across the empty ranch house like a ghostly echo of the woman who once hushed him. The man sat slumped in the chair, his large, calloused hand cradling the child who rooted weakly against his shirt front, searching for what he could not give. His wife was gone, buried under a raw mound of earth just 2 days back, and the boy was starving. He had tried cow's milk, thin and warm, poured into a ragtide bottle. The baby spat it out, choking, his tiny fists flailing. He had tried sugar water, desperate, but the child grew weaker, his cries sharper, then thinner. A sound that scraped at the rancher's soul like barbed wire dragging across flesh. He had fought Indians, bandits, and the merciless drought of 2 summers past. But nothing felt as defeating as the hollow sobs of his dying son. By the time dusk settled in with its purple shadows and the coyotes yipped in the distance, the man felt the madness of helplessness curl around him. His wife's rocking chair sat near the hearth, still draped with the shawl she had worn when the fever took her. He stared at it, his chest heaving, and muttered aloud to a woman beneath the dirt, "What am I supposed to do, Mary? He's all I've got. I can't lose him too." That was when the knock came, a sharp rap against the wooden door. In that lonely stretch of prairie, a knock at such an hour felt more haunting than welcome. He rose, still clutching the baby against his chest, his other hand sliding toward the rifle propped near the wall. He opened it, and there she stood, a woman, young but not girlish, her dress dust-stained from the trail. Strands of dark hair clung damply to her temples, but it wasn't her weary eyes that struck him. It was the way she pressed a bundle close to her chest, her shawl wrapped tightly over it, and the unmistakable swell beneath. Her breasts were full, heavy, milk already dampening the cloth. She looked straight at the baby in his arms, her lips parting as though her body recognized his need before her mind could speak. "I heard crying," she said softly, almost ashamed, as though intruding. Then her voice steadied, urgent. "That child's hungry." The rancher's grip tightened on his son. "Who are you?" His tone was hard, suspicion roughened by grief. "A widow," she whispered, lowering her shawl slightly. A tiny face peeked out from her bundle, a baby girl, sleeping with the easy fullness of one well-fed. "Lost my man on the trail east of here. Fever took him quick. I've been wandering, looking for work, looking for shelter." Her gaze flicked to the child wailing weakly against the rancher's chest. "And I can help him." The rancher's throat went dry. His instinct screamed to shut the door, to send her away into the wild where danger came cloaked in many forms. But the baby jerked in his arms again, his cry now more a mule of surrender than fight. He stepped aside. She crossed the threshold without another word. Inside, she sat, unwrapping herself with practiced motions, revealing the infant girl she laid gently in the crib cornered near the fire. Then, with no hesitation, she reached for the rancher's boy. "Give him here," she said. It felt like surrender, handing his son over to a stranger. But the man's hands shook as he did it, and the woman drew the baby against her breast. The child latched greedily, his tiny hands gripping the fabric of her dress. A sound unlike any the rancher had heard filled the cabin, contented swallowing, the fragile hum of life returning. Tears stung his eyes, and he turned away quickly, ashamed. The woman stroked the baby's hair, her face softened, transformed. "There now. He alive. He just needed what only a mother can give." The rancher sat back in his chair, staring at her as firelight played across her features. For the first time in days, the tension in his chest loosened, but a different unease crept in. Who was this woman, really? Why here, at his door, at this moment? As if reading his thoughts, she spoke, her voice low. "I've nowhere else. No kin left. Been walking west with nothing but her in my arms. Folks pass me by, no one wants a woman with a child. But I can work, I can cook, mend, clean. If you'll let me stay a while, I'll give him what he needs. Both your little one and mine." Her words were steady, but there was something beneath them. A quiet desperation, the kind a man couldn't ignore. The rancher leaned forward, elbows on knees. "You show up at my door with milk in your breasts and ask to stay. That's too much to call chance." Her eyes met his without flinching. "Call it providence, or call it the last bit of mercy this land has left for either of us." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the soft suckling of the babe. The days that followed were not easy. The woman, her name was Eliza, tended to both infants, rising through the night when either stirred. She moved about the ranch house as though she had always belonged, her hands busy with chores that had fallen to dust since Mary's death. The rancher watched her, suspicion lingering at first, but necessity stronger. His boy grew stronger, his cheeks filling, his cries turning to coos. But with life came whispers, whispers that traveled faster than wind across the prairie towns. A widow, alone with a rancher, 2 babes under one roof. Folks began to wonder what bound them, what bargains were struck behind closed doors. One evening, as thunder rumbled in the distance, the rancher asked the question that had gnawed at him since that first night. "Eliza," he said, his voice heavy, "why did you really come here? Out of all the doors you might have knocked on, why mine?" She folded the small shirt she had washed, her movements slow. For a long time, she didn't answer. Then, finally, because I heard him cry, and because I knew what that sound meant. My milk was strong, and your baby was fading. I thought, maybe saving a life would be reason enough for God to spare mine. The storm outside broke then, lightning slicing the sky, and the rancher felt something break inside him too. Grief still clung to him like a shadow, but beside it now stood a woman whose sorrow mirrored his, yet who carried within her the power to nourish life. Nights stretched into weeks, weeks into months. The babies grew side by side, brothers not by blood but by milk. The rancher's heart, once hard as weathered stone, softened in ways he hadn't believed possible. Yet with softness came fear. Fear of losing again, fear of needing someone, fear of what it meant when his gaze lingered too long on Eliza as she hummed lullabies in the firelight. One night, after laying both children to rest, she turned to him, her eyes steady. "You can't keep living half in the grave with her," she said, meaning Mary. "Your boy needs more than milk. He needs a father who's alive, not just breathing." Her words cut sharper than any knife. He rose, pacing the floor, fists clenched. "You don't know what you're saying. You don't know what I lost." But she stepped closer, her hand brushing his arm, grounding him. "I know loss. I carry it too. But grief don't feed a baby. And it don't build a future. If we're to survive out here, we need more than sorrow to bind us." The rancher froze, torn between rage and yearning. Her touch lingered, her eyes did not waver. And in that moment, he saw not a stranger, not a widow, but the only woman who had stood between his son and death. He drew in a ragged breath. "You asking to be my wife?" Her lips curved, faintly, not in jest but in quiet defiance of fate. "I'm asking if you'll let me be what your boy already thinks I am." The fire cracked, the storm rumbled far off, and the rancher's answer came not in words but in the way he reached for her hand, his calloused fingers folding over hers as though he had found, at last, something worth holding on to. The plains were still merciless, the work still backbreaking, and the dangers still close. But inside that cabin, 2 lost souls stitched together a life from hunger, grief, and an untimely knock at the door. And for the first time since death had stolen his wife, the rancher woke not to silence and despair, but to the soft rhythm of 2 babies breathing in the dark, and the steady presence of a woman whose breasts had fed more than a child. They had fed hope itself.